The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Maybe I've been taking Kyle Bowen's pain meds, or maybe I'm just drunk off the blue and green. But the season for the Canucks, it ain't over yet.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
A happy hump day, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, and also a Canucks writer with Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into it, we got to thank you for tuning into Locked On Canucks, because it is your Canucks every damn day, and we're not here without you listening. And we appreciate you tuning in through the good times, through the bad times. And again, one love to my brother Kyle Bowen, still in hospital. Get well soon, buddy. We need you back on the program. And the Canucks, they need some good vibes, because this team just lost to the Buffalo Sabres on home ice after their general manager more or less gave them a vote of confidence, saying that there's been lots of injuries and our defense has been better than you think. I'm paraphrasing, but he went to bat for them. And he went to bat for a number of Canucks. He went to bat for his head coach. And what did they do in the game following praise from the general manager? They go out and they blow a multi-goal, or they blow a lead to the Buffalo Sabres in the third period. This is the Canucks' seventh loss when leading after 40 minutes. Now 15 wins and 7 losses when leading after 40 minutes, compared to 42 wins and 6 losses last season when leading after 40. We all know that this is a very different Canucks team, but all I got to say is it's still only January. And look, there's lots of flaws with this team. We've talked about it plenty. We'll get into it more as the show goes on. But what I want to do to kick off the show today is look at other recent Cinderella stories around the NHL, because it's happened 3 times in the past 6 seasons where a team has been counted out in January and they've gone on to make the Stanley Cup Final. I'm not saying the Canucks are necessarily going to do that, but let's compare the Canucks to the 3 most recent teams who have done that. Again, 3 teams in the past 6 NHL seasons have gone on to the Stanley Cup Final after, a pretty tumultuous start to their season. And it's gone in a pattern too. So if you want to say, let's look at it this way, and we'll kick it off. The 2018-19, the St. Louis Blues. Obviously, we know the story. They were last place. They go on to win the Stanley Cup. 2019-20 happens. Then in 2020-2021, the Montreal Canadiens, middle of the pack at everything. Negative goal differential. They somehow make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. And then 21-22 goes on. And then 22-23, the Florida Panthers make it to the Stanley Cup Final despite sneaking into an 8th place wild card spot. And then obviously no Cinderella story last season with the Florida Panthers and Edmonton Oilers making it. So if you're following the pattern, perhaps there's a Cinderella team that goes on to make a run this season. Now, let's look at those 3 teams a little closer and see if there's any similarities to the Vancouver Canucks. And we'll start with the St. Louis Blues in 2018-19. That team, overall, they had a good defense and a very mid offense. They were 5th overall in goals against and middle of the pack in terms of scoring goals. They also replaced their coach in the middle of the season, hiring Craig Berube to help spearhead the change. 2 of the 3 clubs I just mentioned did that, which helped them reach the Stanley Cup Finals. But the St. Louis Blues, the interesting thing about it, and there's actually some similarities to the rest of the teams here, the St. Louis Blues made no major moves, no major trades during the season. It wasn't like they subtracted or added to their roster to really shake things up. The St. Louis Blues in 2019, their big deadline acquisition was Michael Del Zotto. But what happened with that Blues team is they did trade a boatload of assets to get Ryan O'Reilly in the door in the summer of 2018. He came there and obviously it didn't work out off the bat. Took some time, I guess, to gel with the team. Ryan O'Reilly goes from being a bit of a scapegoat on the worst team in the league to being the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. So all I'm saying is things can change quickly in the NHL. Let's look at the Montreal Canadiens from 2020-2021. Their statistics, middle of the pack. They were all over the place. They were led in goals by Tyler Toffoli, and not by a slim margin either. This is a team of I guess, relative nobodies. No, you had Shea Weber there. You have Carey Price there. But again, it wasn't some powerhouse team that went on to do damage. I mean, look, Tyler Toffoli leads the way with 28 goals in 52 games. The next closest player was Josh Anderson, who I guess was the big offseason ad for the Montreal Canadiens there. He was acquired for Max Domi, a third-round pick prior to that season starting. They also made no major trades during the season as well. And even Carey Price that year was pretty average until the playoffs hit. And you look at the Canucks, and you do wonder if that is something that could transpire for this team. I mean, in all of these situations, all three of these teams that I brought up, they all had guys in net who went on a heater in the playoffs. And that's what you need to have happen if you're going to compete for and win the Stanley Cup. Obviously, Jordan Binnington comes from absolute obscurity to lead the Blues to the title. Carey Price goes from, the regular season that year where he had a .901 save percentage to the playoffs where he had a .924 save percentage. It was a completely different Carey Price in net. And he was doing it held together by duct tape, much like Shea Weber as well. But again, hey, if the Montreal Canadiens can do it, again, with a negative goal differential, and they were a -7 goal differential, just snuck into the playoffs, go down 3-1 to the Leafs in round one, and somehow, some way, end up making it to the Stanley Cup final. If those Montreal Canadiens can do it, why not these Vancouver Canucks? And I don't want to hear any of you talk about the vibes. Again, we'll get into that later on in the show because we all know the vibes are not good in Vancouver right now. But the vibes weren't good in Montreal there either. They fired a coach. They fired Claude Julien, replaced him with Dominic Ducharme to middling results. And they actually, they ended the season playing terribly that year. Looking at the stats here, I mean, after there was a mini break in the middle of the season there, they lost their last 5 games. They actually lost the majority of their last 20 games. Looks like they had about 7 or 8 wins in their final 20 games. They absolutely backed into the playoffs and still went on a heater. And that actually is what separates them from a team like the St. Louis Blues, for instance, who went into the playoffs on more of a heater. All I'm saying is, Canucks fans, we need the positivity right now because things aren't good. It's January and anything can happen. Let's get to the last team, the Florida Panthers of 2022-23. And they're an interesting case too because really all three of those teams have their differences. St. Louis, again, middling offense, good defense. Montreal, mid at everything, went on a heater in a very weird season, but they managed to get it done. The Florida Panthers in 2022-23 had a good offense and a very bad defense. And again, they were with Sergei Bobrovsky in net, I think a lot of smoke around whether he was the guy moving forward, a very middling save percentage in that season as well. But he was a bit of a different guy when he went to the playoffs as well, with a .915 save percentage compared to a .901 in the regular season. And the Florida Panthers, much like the St. Louis Blues in 2019, made no major changes during the season. Their big addition, of course, was Matthew Tkachuk in the offseason of 2022. And Matthew Tkachuk went on to have a 100-plus point season for the Florida Panthers. That was the year in which, again, Kyle and I were still doing Locked On at this point, right? We've been around here about almost 2 years now. That was the year in which I was telling listeners that if the Canucks made the playoffs and they didn't, they finished just outside under Rick Tocchet, his first 30 games as head coach there. I said if the Canucks made the playoffs, Elias Pettersson would have been in the Hart conversation. And just remember that because we seem far, far removed from that right now in Vancouver. But Matthew Tkachuk had over 100 points, and the Florida Panthers barely squeaked into the final wildcard spot in the playoffs. Elias Pettersson right now, again, second-line player, does he have that potential in him? Does he still have that dog in him, buried deep down somewhere, to go in a bit of a heater? I think he does. I don't know how to extract it out of him, or else I'd be a very rich man. But back in 22-23, I'm saying the Canucks made the playoffs then. Pettersson would have been on that Matthew Tkachuk-like level because he had 100 points, over 100 points, and the Canucks just missed out in the playoffs. But again, the Florida Panthers, they overcame a bad defense. They started to gel. They obviously got motivated by beating the Boston Bruins, the President's Trophy-winning Boston Bruins, in overtime of round one, and that set them up to go on a bit of a heater through rounds 2 and 3. easily beating the Toronto Maple Leafs and Carolina Hurricanes. So in sports, momentum is a funny thing. The Canucks have none of it right now, but neither did the Florida Panthers back in 22-23. At the All-Star break, the Florida Panthers were 20th overall in the NHL. The Vancouver Canucks right now, they're 19th overall in the NHL. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying crazier things have happened. Hit me up in the comments, and I want you to answer this question. Do you think the Canucks have Cinderella run potential, or am I just drunk off the blue and green? You're always welcome to join me doing that. Always join in for commenting, whether you're on YouTube, the podcast side, hit us up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you follow pods and interact. Join the Discord as well. Link in the bio for that. We're the best Canuck fans in the world. Talk on the toilet. Coming up on the other side, let's touch on more of the negatives about the Vancouver Canucks, and specifically some of the quotes, storylines coming to last night's game against the Buffalo Sabres. And I'll get to some of your comments as well. Again, you're listening to Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every damn day. We'll be back on the other side after shouting out our friends over at Select Quote. Let's go. All right, baby, let's go. Select Quote. Again, if you're trying to get insurance, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. And the same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from Select Quote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. Select Quote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. They got brokers with nearly 40 years of experience that have helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage. Can we use some of that money to buy the Canucks from Francesco Aquilini? I'm asking for a friend. What sets Select Quote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million. No medical exam required, and no finger up the you-know-what required unless you want it. And get the life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. Go to selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL today to get started. That's selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. Select Quote. They shop. And you do what? You save. All right, we're back here on Locked On Canucks. Your Canucks every damn day, or at least trying right now. Again, I've said it before. Kyle Bowen does 87% of the work on the show. Kyle Bowen, still in hospital last I checked in. Seems to be on the mend. But send some thoughts and prayers to my brother, man, my better half. My wife sometimes calls Kyle my wife. You guys can guess who pitches and who catches there. It's obviously not the pretty one. Come on. And if you're on the podcast side, you can judge our looks based on our voices, right? Let's get to a couple comments before I get into last night's game, because last night's game was depressing, and you know what makes me happy is the listeners. Let's go. Let's get to some of it. Let's go to GLS first, saying, "You are drunk." Well, I'm recording this in my place of employment, so let's keep it on the down low, buddy. Shh. All right, and hey, let's get some positivity. Oliver Sholnick saying Canucks versus Oilers round 1, big upset. Yes, see? Yes, the power of positivity. Anything is possible. Did many people think that the Florida Panthers were going to go in and beat the Boston Bruins? Honestly, I think the Boston Bruins were a bit fraudulent that season as well, for as good as they'd been. But obviously, most people were picking the Bruins over the Florida Panthers. And in the playoffs, crazier things have happened, right? Stranger things have happened. And I do think there's a recipe with this Canucks team to potentially go on a Cinderella run. But obviously, they got to pull their heads out of their rear ends. And they got to play to their identity a bit better. Their identity right now, unfortunately, is slow, boring defensive hockey. Not the most exciting hockey for the fan base. And again, we kind of saw last night that, they get a lead and they want to sit back and protect, and it's just not working out like it had in seasons past. And part of that is, Thatcher Demko. It's a bit of a conversation, and he was a little sad and decrepit last night when talking to the media. Again, now he has 3 wins in 11 games this season, and an .873 save percentage. So it is starting to become a bit more of a conversation with Thatcher Demko in terms of, is this guy going to get back to his peak form? And look, I've said it time and time again, I am a Thatcher Demko believer. I really am. And obviously he's not been the player we've expected in years past, but look at what he's gone through. The Papatias. Kyle's got me so messed up saying that I don't even know what it's called anymore. He's been through a lot. He's missed a lot of time. But we're talking about a guy who was the runner-up for the Vezina Trophy last season. And you have a guy in Kevin Lankinen who, when he's back from his illness, apparently he's got the flu right now, can supplant and give him good minutes. So I do believe when you think about the Canucks going on a heater, again, look at the Montreal Canadiens in 2020, 2021. Price was very average during the regular season and went on a heater in the playoffs. Do you not think that Thatcher Demko has that same potential? This is a guy who missed most of the last 12 months because of injury. All right, we're talking about around the All-Star break last season, where he left with injury, played a couple games at the end of the season, and won in the playoffs, and now he's played 11 this season. He has not played a lot of hockey in the last 12 months, and his defense is a little leakier than before. And Patrick Ovi mentioned in his press conference that there has to be cohesion among the forward group. And you look at last night, and I think it was the Tage Thompson goal, not one of the ones in the third where there's defensive breakdowns, but you look at the Tage Thompson goal, and he fires a puck with both Besser and Pettersson taking away Demko's eyesight. That one, what do you expect Demko to do on it? I mean, it's on the fancy stat sheet, it's going to be a shot from medium danger range. But what's Demko supposed to do when he can't see the puck through 2 guys? If you're a forward, you got to take your man, or you got to get out of the way and get your head down. And the Canucks aren't doing Demko any favors right now. I've said that before. I know Demko, hard on himself last night, talks about the challenging year that he's had. And here are a couple quotes from me. He said, I don't think I've been good enough this year so far. I've got to keep working to find that level that I know I can get to. I'll be the first guy working on my game day in and day out. Again, a couple of goals go against him in the third, but some defensive breakdowns there as well. I mean, you could look at Pettersson or Hronek not taking Yuri Kulich, JJ Peterka on that late goal there. But again, with Thatcher Demko, he's obviously not in a great place. He's talked about it being a challenging year. He looks emotional, sad in his press conferences. But again, it's been such a trying year for the Canucks. And tell me if I'm wrong. Emotional times here. Was that the low point of the Canucks season last night? Because they've had some blowout losses. We talked about last week. 6-1 against the Jets. 5-1 against the Kings, where Miller looks like he's playing his way out of town. But that game against the Buffalo Sabres, after such a good performance against the Edmonton Oilers, your GM comes out, and instead of talking about making changes, he doubles down and he shows belief in this core. And that's how you come out with 20 good minutes of hockey against a team that played the night before in Seattle. It's just not good enough for this Vancouver Canucks hockey team. And again, I think there's tweaks they can make both to their style. Actually, one of the tweaks we kind of saw last night, I'm not sure if this was strategic or not, but there's a stat out there and it shows up in the game tape. In the first and third period, they'd almost primarily dumped the puck in. I saw a stat that I think it was 4 carry-ins and 20 dump-ins. Shout out to 420. We are a 420 friendly program. In the second period, I believe it was 14 carry-ins and 4 dump-ins was the stat. In this day and age in the NHL, you got to try and carry the puck in and use your offensive skill. Like, that is what the game is trending towards more and more so. And the Canucks aren't some crazy fast team that can dump it in and be the first guy on the forecheck and get the puck. I think they do need to rely more on finding each other on the ice. Cohesion. And again, there hasn't been a lot of cohesion because of injury, but you're talking about a core that's played together for half a decade now. And Besser and Pettersson. Garland's been around for 4 seasons now. Miller as well. There are guys that have been there for quite some time, and the cohesion doesn't seem to be there. with your Vancouver Canucks. Yeah, sad Thatcher Demko showing up last night. And again, I think that stat I mentioned off the top. The Canucks have won 15 of 22 games when leading after 20 minutes. That's a sad stat. That's a sad stat. And again, like, look, the defensive numbers for this team have been fine, but they just seem to crater in the worst moments. And even just trying to look it up right now. In terms of, here's the stat. Here's the stat. Okay. Man, oh man. I'm glad I started off the show positive. When leading after 2 periods this season, the Canucks have a winning percentage of .682. The only team with the worst winning percentage when leading after 2 periods is the San Jose Sharks. The Canucks are dead last in shots. They're second worst in terms of holding a lead when leading after 40 minutes. Someone's got to change this damn team, man. And look, it could be internal. I'm not necessarily going to be a trade that's going to change things. And look, I mentioned off the top. Look at the Blues. Look at the Canadiens. Look at the Panthers. None of them made massive trades mid-season to spark the team. A couple of them fired coaches, but none of them made some massive trade that sparked the team and led them to go into a Stanley Cup final. And maybe if this charade in Vancouver keeps going on, I'll try to bring up some more examples from the past. Obviously, the 2012 Kings stand out as well. The 06 Oilers. There are lots of teams in NHL history, and every couple seasons we seem to see it. Some Cinderella team goes on a run. Could it be the Vancouver Canucks this season? It could be. But again, in times like this, it is very hard to see that being a possibility. But hey, I'm going to say it one more time. Crazier things have happened. Let's end off the show. Again, I'll try to get to some more of your comments. And I do want to talk about Aatu Ratu. Is he ready to make an impact? Not just make the jump to the NHL, but make an impact in the NHL. Let's talk about it after we shout out our friends over at FanDuel. Man, oh man. I mean, right now, one of the best bets you can make on FanDuel is betting the under in Vancouver Canucks games. Most of the time, the over-under line is set at 5.5 goals. And look at the Canucks' past few games. 5 goals last night against Buffalo combined. 5 against the Oilers combined. Obviously, when the Jets and Kings blew us out, a little different. But you look at the Canucks stat sheet right now, lots of low-scoring games. Not the most exciting hockey. But if you want to win some money on FanDuel, bet the under on Vancouver Canucks games. And whether it's NHL, NFL, or ballet, make sure you make your bets on FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is so easy to use that even I can use it, and the variety of bets keep every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's on FanDuel.com. Make this season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We're back here on Locked On Canucks. Your Canucks every damn day. Again, part of that Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out to Trey Matthews from Locked On. I did the show with him yesterday. The host of Locked On Devils, talking about, could the Canucks trade JT Miller to the Devils? I do truly think that the Devils might have the assets to pull it off. In a package that involves Simon Nemec, Dawson Mercer. Again, according to Trey, it's going to be hard to get the numbers to work. And again, it looks like there's some reporting today that suggests that Miller and the Rangers have picked up again. I mean, honestly, seems like a lot of smoke right now. And there's a new rumor every day. And I don't know. We'll keep talking about it here on Locked On. We'll keep bringing you up to speed on the rumors in case you're not glued into the media, the toxic media in Vancouver, some might call it. But again, until something happens, I do think it's just a lot of noise. Remember the Miller smoke from 2 years ago, right? I think it was the first day I did Locked On, March 1st, 2023. Was Miller or Bassett getting traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins? That was the big rumor back then. And of course, nothing happened. Miller goes on to sign the extension, have a 100-point season. Boom, bam. Let's get to a couple comments, and I'll end the show by talking about Aatu Ratu. Man, oh man, lots of love for JT Miller, okay? Mo Sander in the comments saying, I hope we can keep Miller and trade Pettersson. I mean, the main argument is that Pettersson's going to get you the bigger return. Matt in the comments, this guy, I don't know what Elias Pettersson did, if Elias Pettersson banged this guy's girlfriend or something, but this guy is all on Elias Pettersson. Every comment, Matt, I'm proud of you just for being consistent, man. So consistent. And he's saying in the comments, trading Miller is the dumbest thing we can do. Andrew in the comments saying, could we get Martin Necas still? I did see probably one of the dumbest trade proposals I saw, and this is from Carolina's perspective. Jason Bukala at Sportsnet talked about the Canucks trading Miller, and I believe the trade was something like Miller and Shilovs for Necas, Spencer Martin, and a second-round pick. And I'm like, well, why would the Carolina Hurricanes do that? Martin Necas is younger. He's cost-controlled. He's top 10 in NHL scoring still. I know he's gone a bit cold, but again, I would do that in a heartbeat. I think so would most Canucks fans. JT Miller and Shilovs for Necas, Spencer Martin, and a second-round pick. I mean, weird times out there, man. It is silly season whenever you're talking about trades. Let's see what else we got here. James Moore in the comments saying, move UFA Besser before the deadline or sign him. Get on with it. Move Miller whenever for the right value. Extend Kevin Lankinen. I did see from our friends over at AFP Analytics, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, the extension for Kevin Lankinen, based on their projection, was something around 4 years and $3-ish million. And if you could get Kevin Lankinen for that, would you do it? I think most Canuck fans would. Kevin Lankinen, again, been such a big part of the success so far this season. Let's go to Mike Laval, too, always leaving good comments. You're never going to get good value for Miller or Pettersson. It'll be similar to the Eichel trade. His trade is actually realistic. And for those wondering, his trade was, man, oh man, Morgan Geekie, Matthew Poitras, a first, and Zadorov for JT Miller. You know what? If you could extract that kind of value out of Boston, again, no star players in there. That's one of the only things. Maybe you flip the first, but that is a haul. Some NHL GM mode 25 stuff. Mike Laval, he's celebrating 420 and playing NHL 25. So shout out to you, buddy. No one's trying to trade away Aatu Ratu right now, so let's shout him out. Aatu Ratu was recently named the AHL Player of the Week for the Abbotsford Canucks. That's something crazy like 9 points in 4 games. So I pulled up the game log here. Looks like he had 7 points in his last 4 games. He's had 13 points in 13 games since being sent down to the AHL. Obviously, a bit of a slow start, bit of an adjustment, but he's been on a heater recently in a back-to-back against the Ontario Reign, the LA Kings affiliate. He had a 4-point night followed by a 3-point night. And overall, again, 4 goals, 13 points in 13 games since getting sent back down. And I'm going to be following this closely throughout Aatu Ratu's career because the comparisons to me to JT Miller are interesting. And I brought it up before, but quick summary in case you're not an everyday or haven't heard this bit before. Aatu Ratu and JT Miller are both highly touted prospects who fell a bit in their draft year based on perceived character issues, perhaps. With Aatu Ratu, it wasn't more so like he was a bad boy or anything like that, but digging into it, he kind of fell off. He was maybe a potential number 1 overall pick and fell off in his draft eligible season. Later interviews, it was suggested that he kind of lost his love for the game, was almost too intense and became more work than enjoyable for him. Seems like he's kind of found his love of the game again, I would say, with the Abbotsford Canucks, with the Vancouver Canucks. And, last year, now he has about, 52 points in 72 games for the Abbotsford Canucks. Now he's got 20 points in 21 games. He's going to be an NHL player, but how good can he be? I think the best version of Aatu Ratu you see is probably next season, and you hope that he can be a third-line center for this team in the not-so-distant future. He's got the skill to do it. He's obviously good in the face-off dot. He plays power play and penalty kill down in Abbotsford. The foot speed is probably the one thing that's a bit of a knock on him, but that can be worked on. We've seen that in the past. And again, looking at JT Miller at the same age, Miller was a full-time NHLer, but he was still kind of like, he had 23 points in 58 games. He did spend some time in the AHL that season as well, with similar stats, 15 points in 18 games in his age 22 season, which is what Aatu Ratu is right now. So they're not too far off from each other. And I think Aatu Räty has the work ethic, which has been complimented by Tocchet before, to at least be a third line center. Can he be more for this hockey team? Again, not many expected JT Miller to pop off and be a superstar. But JT Miller, a season after, did start trending towards being at least a second liner for the next couple of seasons before coming to Vancouver. Maybe Aatu Räty again. Development isn't linear, but you got to think Aatu Räty should be a third line option for the Canucks next season. Someone who can be responsible defensively, win faceoffs, and be in that 10-goal, 35-point range. And you know, if JT Miller or Elias Pettersson actually get traded, Aatu Räty is going to be force-fed into this lineup, more likely than not. Don't judge him too much if he does get there, because again, 2 goals, 4 points in 20 games this season. Another 420 reference here. Shout out to 420. You know, he's not blowing the doors off right now, but he's still an NHL player with good potential. Speaking of the potential, the Canucks are running low on it. But like I said at the top, crazier things have happened in the NHL. So shout out to you and you and you and you and you for tuning in, whether you're an everyday or first-time listener or anything in between. We appreciate the hell out of you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. Remember, if you like what we're doing, make sure you subscribe to this video on YouTube. Go like us, man. Like this video so I can buy Kyle some chicken noodle soup, man. Unbelievable. I got to pass got a big old boring exam tomorrow. Hopefully I can drop off some chicken noodle soup with Kyle after that. One love to Kyle Bowen. Get better, buddy. Appreciate the hell out of you, man. Miss you. And again, on the YouTube side, subscribe and like. On the podcast side, go follow us, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate the hell out of you for tuning into Locked On Canucks. I'm off writing exams all day tomorrow, but I'll try to hop on a post-game show. Again, I'm Trevor Beggsy, signing out here on Locked On Canucks.
Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.